Billionaire CEO gets into the car and hears a black little girl tell him to shut up. The reason was, the sleek black Bentley purred like a contented lion as Dominic Kane slid behind the wheel. Another long day conquering the business world as CEO of Kane Worldwide Enterprises. He reached for the ignition, the familiar leather cool under his fingertips. Don't speak. Don't even start the vehicle. The voice, sharp and urgent, sliced through the quiet garage. Dominic froze, hand hovering over the key. He turned, surprised. Standing beside his car door was a young girl. She couldn't have been more than 10 or 11, her dark eyes wide with fear. She wore simple jeans and a faded t-shirt, clutching a worn backpack strapped tightly. Dominic recognized her vaguely. Michelle? Wasn't her mother one of the cleaners in the corporate tower? "What is it, child?" he asked, his voice calm but laced with impatience. He had a dinner reservation. Michelle took a shaky breath, her gaze darting around the nearly empty parking level. "Don't start it. If you drive away, you won't get far. You'll die." Dominic blinked. What nonsense are you saying?" He started to dismiss her, thinking it's some childish prank or wild imagination. But the sheer terror in her eyes held him. "It's not nonsense," she insisted, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. She leaned closer. "There's a bomb. Under the car. Right now." A cold prickle ran down Dominic's spine. "A bomb? Michelle, that's—" He trailed off, seeing the absolute conviction on her face. How could you possibly know that?" "I heard them," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously again. "Last night, after Mom finished cleaning the executive floor offices. I was waiting for her in the supply closet. I heard Auntie Vanessa and Uncle David talking. In his office." Dominic felt the world tilt slightly. Vanessa? David? His cousins? His partners? His family? Talking about what? His voice was tight. They said by the end of today, you wouldn't be alive. That they could finally take the company. They sounded happy. Michelle shivered. The words hit Dominic like physical blows. Vanessa and David. Grandpa Kane's other grandchildren. Grandpa Kane, the fierce old patriarch who'd built Kane Worldwide from scratch. Dominic remembered family gatherings. Always Grandpa ruffling his hair, praising his schoolwork, taking him to the factory floor, while Vanessa and David watched with tight smiles. He thought it was just sibling rivalry. He'd been naive. Dominic's mind went back to the date of reading of the will 5 years ago. The lawyer's dry voice. "To my beloved grandson, Dominic Kane, I bequeath the entirety of Kane Worldwide Enterprises, its holdings, subsidiaries, and controlling interest." Vanessa's sharp intake of breath. David's knuckles white on the armrest. "To Vanessa and David Kane, I leave the Elmwood and Crestview estates and the Grand Plaza hotel chain. Properties worth millions, generating steady income, but not the empire. Not the power." Dominic had tried to be magnanimous, offered them bigger roles. They'd smiled, accepted, and apparently plotted. Jealousy, cold, bitter, festering for years. They hadn't just wanted a bigger slice. They'd wanted it all. And to get it, they had to remove him. Permanently. Dominic stared at Michelle, the child's face pale with fear. Could it be true? This wild accusation from a cleaner's daughter? Yet the timing, the quiet malice he'd sometimes sensed beneath their polished smiles. The sheer, terrifying possibility. He didn't speak. Slowly, deliberately, he opened the car door and got out. His expensive leather shoes clicked softly on the concrete. He knelt, ignoring the grime, and peered beneath the gleaming chassis of the Bentley. And there it was, taped crudely near the fuel line, a small dark box. Red digital numbers glowed ominously, ticking down. 2 minutes and 17 seconds. 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Dominic's breath caught in his throat. The world narrowed to those pulsing red digits. Michelle hadn't lied. This wasn't nonsense. This was death minutes away. "Michelle." His voice was a rasp. "Get back. Far back. Now. Run to the stairwell." He pointed urgently towards the concrete stairs at the far end of the level. Michelle didn't hesitate. She turned and sprinted, her small shoes slapping against the concrete. Dominic scrambled back himself, his heart hammering against his ribs. He fumbled for his phone, fingers trembling. He had a call. Who? Security? Police? There's no time. 1 minute and 45 seconds. 00:01:44. He saw a large, heavy-looking concrete parking block discarded near a pillar. Pure adrenaline surged. He grabbed it, the rough edges scraping his palms. He staggered back towards the car, not under it, but beside the rear wheel. With a grunt born of sheer panic, he shoved the block hard against the tire. It wouldn't stop the bomb, but it might just stop the car from rolling if the blast moved it. He turned and ran, sprinting towards the stairwell Michelle had vanished into. He slammed the heavy fire door open just as he heard it. Kaboom! The sound was deafening, a physical force that punched the air from his lungs. He was thrown forward, crashing onto the concrete stairs. Heat washed over him, followed by a choking wave of thick, acrid smoke. Debris rained down, shards of glass, twisted metal, chunks of concrete. The fire alarm shrieked, adding its banshee wail to the chaos. Dominic lay stunned for a moment, ears ringing, lungs burning. He pushed himself up, coughing violently. Through the settling dust and smoke billowing from the stairwell door window, he saw the remains of his Bentley. It wasn't a car anymore. It was a blackened, twisted skeleton engulfed in roaring flames. The heat was intense, even from this distance. Michelle huddled against the wall a few steps down, her eyes huge with terror, her hands clamped over her ears. Dominic crawled to her, pulling her into a rough embrace. It's okay, he choked out, though it wasn't. We're okay. You saved me. You saved us. He looked back at the inferno that had been his car, that had been meant for him. A cold, hard certainty settled over the shock. Vanessa and David had tried to kill him. They thought they'd succeeded, and they would act fast. Hey everyone, things just got real intense. Dominic's world just exploded, literally. But what happens next? How does a man fight back when everyone thinks he's dead? Stick with us, because the twists are just getting started. Don't forget to subscribe to Black Nation, your community for powerful stories like this one. Let's get back to the drama. Dominic knew he couldn't stay. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Help was coming, but so would the press, the police, and his cousins. They'd be watching. They'd expect confirmation of his death. He looked down at Michelle, her small frame trembling. Michelle, listen to me. This is very important. You saw nothing. You heard nothing. You were never here. Do you understand? Go home. Tell no one, not even your mom, what you saw or what you told me. Not yet. It's dangerous. She nodded mutely, tears streaking the dust on her cheeks. Are you going to die now? No, Dominic said, the word fierce. No, I'm not. But they think I am. And for now, they need to keep thinking that. Can you keep this secret? For just a little while? She nodded again, more firmly this time. Yes, Mr. Kane. Good girl. Now go quickly, before the firemen come. He gave her a gentle push towards the stairs leading down. She disappeared into the gloom. Dominic pulled his suit jacket tighter, its fine silk now smudged and torn. He slipped out of the stairwell onto a lower parking level, away from the smoke and chaos. He moved like a ghost, keeping to the shadows, avoiding the gathering crowd drawn by the explosion. He hailed a cab a block away, giving the driver the address of a discreet, luxurious boutique hotel downtown. The Viridian, owned by a silent partner, completely unconnected to Kane Worldwide. He paid the driver in cash from his wallet. In his suite on the top floor, the city lights glittering below, Dominic felt the full weight of the betrayal crash down. He sank onto the plush sofa, his hands shaking. His cousins, his blood, they'd planted a bomb. They'd try to murder him for a company. The love, the shared holidays, the family dinners, it had all been a lie. A suffocating wave of grief and rage threatened to overwhelm him. He switched on a massive wall-mounted TV. Breaking news from the financial district. A massive explosion has ripped through the underground parking garage of the Kane Worldwide Tower. Emergency services are on the scene. Early reports indicate the vehicle destroyed belonged to none other than Dominic Kane, the billionaire CEO of Kane Worldwide. Fears are growing for Mr. Kane's safety. Witnesses report the vehicle was engulfed in flames moments after the blast. We have unconfirmed reports that, yes, we are now receiving reports that Dominic Kane is feared dead in this explosion. Dominic watched numbly as footage of the burning wreckage filled the screen. Then came the talking heads, business analysts speculating on the company's future, news anchors expressing shock and condolences. And then, the cut to the lobby of Kane Worldwide. Vanessa and David stood there, microphones thrust towards them. Vanessa, impeccably dressed in black, dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Her voice trembled with practiced sorrow. "We are devastated, utterly heartbroken. Dominic wasn't just our CEO, he was our cousin, our brother. This is a senseless tragedy." Her performance was Oscar-worthy. David stood beside her, his face a mask of grim shock. "The police are investigating. We have absolute confidence they will find who did this. Kane Worldwide was Dominic's life. We will ensure his legacy continues. We must, for the employees, for the shareholders." He placed a comforting hand on Vanessa's shoulder. The picture of grieving, responsible family. Dominic felt sick. The sheer hypocrisy. The cold-blooded calculation. They were already positioning themselves. He watched as they smoothly deflected questions about succession, emphasizing unity and the need to keep the company strong during this dark time. He didn't call Vicky his girlfriend of 2 years. He loved her, but could he trust anyone right now? How deep did this plot go? His phone buzzed incessantly. Calls from colleagues, friends, the board. He silenced it. Let them mourn. Let Vanessa and David believe they'd won. Over the next 36 hours, Dominic stayed hidden. He watched the news cycle churn. Tributes to the visionary leader, investigations into possible corporate rivals or disgruntled employees, the announcement of a private memorial service. And then, the morning of the second day, the bombshell he expected, delivered with sickening speed during a business news segment. In a surprising move, the board of Kane Worldwide, led by interim chairs Vanessa and David Kane, has announced a special gala this evening. Insiders say the event, initially planned as a simple gathering to honor Dominic Kane's memory, will now also serve to ensure stability and formally announce the new leadership structure. Vanessa Kane is expected to assume the role of CEO, with David Kane as Chief Operating Officer. A statement released by the board reads, "Even in our profound grief, the company must move forward." Dominic would have wanted that. Dominic stared at the screen. A gala. To announce their takeover. On the second day after his death. They weren't even bothering to pretend to mourn properly. The greed, the arrogance was breathtaking. The footage cut to Vanessa, already looking triumphant in a sleek new suit, giving a soundbite about honoring Dominic's vision. It made Dominic's blood boil. Can you believe the nerve? Throwing a party to steal a dead man's company? But Dominic Kane isn't finished. He's got a plan, and it involves a very brave little girl and a secret he's been keeping. What happens at that gala will blow your mind. Stay tuned, and remember to hit that subscribe button for Black Nation, where stories of courage and justice come alive. A slow, cold smile spread across Dominic's face. The grief was still there, a raw wound, but was now wrapped in a layer of steel-hard resolve. They wanted a show. They wanted to announce their victory. Fine. He would give them a show they'd never forget. He made 2 calls. The first was discreet, to a private security firm he trusted implicitly. The second was to Michelle's mother, arranged through a secure, untraceable line. He explained the bare minimum, assuring her Michelle was safe and a hero, and asked for her daughter's presence that evening, promising safety and reward. He heard the fear and confusion in the woman's voice, but also a dawning understanding and fierce protectiveness. She agreed. Hours later, Dominic stood before a full-length mirror in his suite. He wore a flawlessly tailored white silk suit, not mourning black, but a statement of defiance, of purity against their darkness. It shone under the lights. He looked every inch the powerful CEO, not a man recently escaped from death. A soft knock came at the connecting door. He opened it. Michelle stood there, dressed in a simple but pretty blue dress, her hair neatly braided. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Her mother stood behind her, looking anxious but resolute. "Are you ready, Michelle?" Dominic asked gently, kneeling to her level. She nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yes, Mr. Kane. Call me Dominic tonight," he smiled. "You and we're going to give them a surprise." He held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, her small hand slipped into his. It was warm and trusting, the hand that saved his life. The grand ballroom of the Regent Hotel pulsed with low music and the murmur of the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over men in tuxedos and women in glittering gowns. The air was thick with expensive perfume, fine champagne, and the unspoken buzz of anticipation. Everyone was there, board members, major shareholders, politicians, socialites. It was less a memorial, more a coronation. Vanessa and David held court near the stage, accepting condolences with somber expressions that couldn't quite hide the gleam of triumph in their eyes. They looked every bit the new rulers of the Kane Empire. "Such a tragic loss," murmured a shareholder, shaking David's hand. "Indeed," David replied, his voice heavy with false sorrow. "But Dominic would insist we carry on. For the company." Vanessa nodded beside him. "He built this. We owe it to him to ensure its future is bright." She took a delicate sip of champagne. James, Dominic's longtime personal assistant, stood near the back, his face grim. He watched Vanessa and David, a deep frown creasing his brow. Something wasn't right. The speed of this takeover, their demeanor, it felt off. He tried to voice concerns discreetly, but had been shut down. He scanned the room, feeling a pang of loss for Dominic, a man he'd respected deeply. Suddenly, the low chatter began to die. Heads turned towards the grand entrance at the back of the ballroom. A ripple of shock, then stunned silence, spread through the crowd like a wave. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Champagne flutes froze halfway to lips. There, framed in the massive doorway, stood Dominic Kane. Alive, resplendent in his white suit, radiating an aura of calm authority, and holding the hand of a small, wide-eyed girl in a blue dress. Gasps echoed. Murmurs of impossible. "Is that?" Dominic filled the sudden void of music. Eyes bulged, jaws dropped, cameras flashed instinctively. Vanessa's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound was shockingly loud in the silence. Her face drained of all color, her carefully composed mask of grief shattering into pure, unadulterated shock. David stood frozen beside her, his expression morphing from smug satisfaction to utter disbelief, then to a dawning horror. The blood seemed to drain from his face too, leaving him pale and rigid. Dominic began to walk. The crowd parted before him like the Red Sea, a stunned silence giving way to a growing buzz of confusion and amazement. He walked steadily down the center aisle, Michelle's small hand firmly in his, her eyes fixed straight ahead, trusting him completely. He didn't look at Vanessa or David until he reached the clear space near the stage. He stopped. The entire ballroom held its breath. Vanessa was the first to break. She forced her legs to move, rushing towards him, arms outstretched, a brittle smile plastered on her face. "Dominic! Oh, thank God! You're alive!" Her voice was shrill, unnatural. We were devastated." She tried to embrace him. Dominic took a deliberate step back, avoiding her touch. His gaze was icy, fixed not on her, but on David, who was approaching more slowly, his shock now warring with fury. David reached them, clapping Dominic stiffly on the shoulder. "Dominic, man, I knew you were tough. I knew you couldn't be gone that easily." His laugh was hollow, strained. He tried to pull Dominic into a hug. Dominic slapped David's hand away. The sharp crack echoed in the silent room. "Don't," he said, his voice low, cold, and carrying to every corner. "Don't you dare touch me." The crowd gasped again. The tension crackled. "Who would have known?" Dominic began, his voice rising, clear and strong, amplified by the stunned silence. "That my own flesh and blood could be so cruel, so murderous." A collective murmur rose. "Murderous? What? Who?" Dominic swept his gaze across the sea of faces. Everyone here was told I died in a tragic accident. An engine malfunction. A freak explosion. He paused, letting the words sink in. That was a lie. A carefully constructed lie to cover an attempted murder. Shocked exclamations erupted. Murder? Who would want to kill Dominic? Why? Dominic looked down at Michelle, then back at the crowd. I escaped death only because of this incredibly brave young lady, Michelle. She overheard a plot. She risked everything to warn me just minutes before I was about to drive away in my car. A car that had been rigged with a bomb. He pointed an accusing finger straight at Vanessa and David, who stood frozen, their faces twisting with panic and rage. The people who planned to blow me to pieces, who wanted me dead so they could steal this company, are standing right here. My own cousins, Vanessa and David Kane. The gasp this time was deafening. Hundreds of heads snapped towards the cousins. The atmosphere turned electric with disbelief and dawning outrage. Vanessa recoiled as if struck. How dare you? She shrieked, her voice losing all control. After all we've been through, after our grief, you listen to the lies of a child, a cleaner's brat. Lies. Dominic's voice cut like a whip. He turned to James, who stood rooted to the spot, his face a mixture of shock and dawning understanding. James, my assistant. You sensed something was wrong, didn't you? Their haste? Their lack of genuine grief. James stepped forward slightly, his voice tight. I did, Dominic. It felt unnatural. Too fast. David finally snapped. He lunged towards Michelle, his face contorted with pure hatred. Ew. He spat, grabbing her small arm roughly. You stupid little fool. You ruined everything. Years of planning. Gone because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. Michelle cried out in pain and fear. The crowd roared in protest. Security, Dominic bellowed, his voice raw with fury and the painful, crushing realization of their absolute betrayal. The love? The family bond? All a poisonous act. Now, before security could move, Dominic was there. He wrenched David's hand off Michelle's arm, shoving him backwards. David stumbled, his rage boiling over. You think you're so high and mighty? Vanessa screamed, her carefully constructed facade obliterated by venom. Grandfather's precious golden boy. Always. Why did he give you everything? You were never better than us. David surged forward again, pointing a shaking finger at Dominic. No, Guers. A rat. A useless parasite living off Grandpa's favor. I hated you. I've always hated you. He whirled on Michelle, who was now safely behind Dominic. And you meddling little insect. You just had to spoil it. Their masks were gone, revealing the ugliness beneath. The years of jealousy, resentment, and cold-blooded greed laid bare for everyone to see. The horrified crowd watched the monstrous truth unfold. Finally, hotel security, reinforced by Dominic's own discreetly hired team, surged forward. They grabbed Vanessa and David as they hurled insults and struggled futilely. Police officers, alerted earlier by Dominic's security, entered the ballroom and swiftly took custody. You'll pay for this, Dominic. Vanessa screamed as she was led away, her designer gown looking absurd against the handcuffs. This isn't over. David just glared pure hatred. Silent now, but his eyes promised vengeance. As they were dragged out, the stunned silence returned, heavier than before. Dominic knelt beside Michelle, who was trembling but trying to be brave. Are you all right? He asked softly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, Dominic. He stood, holding her hand again, facing the shocked assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice regaining its calm strength. Kane Worldwide has faced an attack from within, but it has survived. I have survived. Thanks to courage. He squeezed Michelle's hand, and he gestured towards the projector screen that had silently lowered behind the stage. Thanks to preparation. He took a small remote from his pocket. David, you always tease me about my little hobby. Spy cameras. Childish, you called them. He pressed a button. Not so childish now. The screen flickered to life. Grainy, but clear, it showed David's office. Vanessa and David were there, just as Michelle had described. Their voices, slightly distorted but unmistakable, filled the ballroom. David, Final checks are done. It's set for 5:15 p.m., right when he usually leaves. Vanessa, taking a deep breath, good. By tonight, Dominic Kane is history. Finally, David. And by this time tomorrow, we are Kane worldwide. No more playing second fiddle to Grandpa's favorite. Vanessa, a cold laugh, the useless golden boy. He never deserved it. We've earned this. Every bit. David. Just remember, sis, tears at the memorial. Play the grieving cousin perfectly. Then we party. The footage ended. The final, irrefutable proof. The room was utterly silent, then erupted into a cacophony. Shouts of anger, cries of disbelief, the buzz of 100 urgent conversations. Dominic didn't need to say more. The truth, in their own venomous words, was undeniable. The attempted murder charges against Vanessa and David were rock solid. The aftermath unfolded swiftly. The police investigation, bolstered by the footage and Michelle's testimony, was conclusive. Vanessa and David faced a mountain of evidence and the prospect of very long prison sentences. For Michelle and her mother, life transformed overnight. Dominic, true to his word and overflowing with gratitude, ensured they wanted for nothing. He bought them a beautiful, safe house in a quiet neighborhood. He arranged for a brand new, reliable car for Michelle's mother. He promoted her mother instantly from cleaner to a well-paid, respected position managing Kane Worldwide's charitable foundation, a role she embraced with dignity and pride. Michelle's future education, from the best schools through college, was fully funded and guaranteed. And Dominic did more than reward them. He brought them into his life. Michelle became a fixture at his home on weekends, treated like a beloved niece. He found joy in her laughter, a small light in the darkness of his cousin's betrayal. He explained everything to Vicky, who was initially hurt by his silence, but overwhelmed with relief that he was alive. Their bond deepened through the shared ordeal. Dominic Kane had faced death and betrayal. He'd lost his cousins, but he'd gained something profound, the knowledge that true courage and kindness could come from the most unexpected places. And as he looked at Michelle, laughing in the garden of his home, safe and happy, he knew that saving his life wasn't just her act of kindness. It was the beginning of redeeming his own. One incredible journey. From a parking lot warning to a gala showdown, truth prevailed. Remember, courage comes in all sizes, and family isn't always blood. Thanks for being part of the Black Nation community. If you love this story of justice and unexpected heroes, make sure you subscribe. Hit that button below for more powerful, inspiring stories that celebrate our strength and resilience. Share this with your friends. Until next time, stay strong, Black Nation.